The US economy is in much worse shape than we previously thought. The Bureau of Economic Analysis just revised the Q1 GDP data and is not looking good. Previously, it was reported that the US economy shrank about 1.4% on an annualized basis in Q1. But now all of a sudden, that revision is showing at least 1.6% contraction in the GDP data from Q1. What that means is that the US economy is doing even worse than they previously told us. And if we go ahead and we look at the actual charts, we can see that the US economy hasn't done this bad since literally the start of the COVID pandemic back in 2020. As you can see here, Q1, there was an economic contraction. Q2, there was a massive economic contraction. 2 straight quarters of economic contraction, that means it was a recession. Of course, the economy came roaring back once the government and the central bank stepped in with all sorts of monetary and fiscal policy and stimulus. Now that we got that economic contraction in Q1 of this year, all eyes are on Q2 data. If we get economic contraction in Q2, that'll be 2 consecutive quarters and it'll mean that we're in a recession. Now, whether the Q2 data actually is negative or not, there's many people who feel like we're in a recession, regardless of the actual definition. What that means is that the psychology of consumers is changing. The psychology of investors and consumers is worth paying attention to, because ultimately that psychology will eventually show up in the data in the future. This data, like the GDP data, is actually backwards looking. It tells us what already happened. But as we've seen, the Federal Reserve, they've made their intentions very clear. They believe that assets and inflation have gotten too high and that they are going to destroy demand. If they are successful in destroying demand, the hope is that inflation will come down. But in order to bring inflation down and destroy demand, it means that we're going to have some sort of contraction. And so the psychology now is people are preparing for a recession. And in some way, we actually may manifest a recession. Because if the Fed's telling us that they're going to destroy demand, what does everyone do? They start hoarding cash. They stop spending as much and they stop investing as much. That's where you see asset prices coming down. That's where you see inflation hopefully will start to come down. But it means that a recession is on the horizon. And if they cannot actually find the soft landing, which I don't believe that they will, it'll mean that we went from the COVID-19 pandemic to historic inflation all the way to a recession. A nice little round trip in about 2 to 2.5 years. It's not exactly the economic stability that consumers or investors want in an economy. We got a lot of work to do, and keep your eye on that Q2 data. If it's negative, it'll mean that we're in an official recession. If it's not, it just means that that psychology is likely to play out in the data Q3, Q4, and into 2023. There is a massive, complex machine at play here. And what we are watching is not only a bad situation play out, but we're also watching the intervention and manipulation of the economy because the central bank and elected officials, they have to have some need to feel in control. And the only way they can do it is step in and try to destroy demand in these moments. I don't know what's going to happen, but this feels very uneasy and uncertain. And I think that's what you're seeing play out with consumers and investors alike. They want cash. They don't want to get overextended. They're going risk off. And that likely is going to show in the GDP data at some point.
Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and see you next time.